Joining me now is former advisor to George W. Bush, Brad Blakeman, along with former DNC Deputy Press Secretary Jose Aristimuno. Gentlemen, good to see both of you. Brad, to you first. How much does this fight between Bannon and Trump dominate in the days to come? And even, I don't know, let's look ahead to November, midterm elections.
I don't think it has any effect. Most of the country doesn't even know who Steve Bannon is. And the fact is that if Steve Bannon thought all these terrible things, why did he help the president get elected? And why did he serve with treasonous, quote unquote, people? This is a disgruntled employee. We've seen it in every workplace. We're seeing it now because it's a little more high profile. But there's a danger in taking on the President of the United States, the most powerful guy in the world, also a guy who has 20 million Twitter followers. I can tell you who I think the winner's going to be.
Jose, in terms of winners, Steve Bannon was preparing to run challengers against virtually every GOP incumbent in the midterms, particularly in the Senate, except maybe for Ted Cruz. And I think it's obvious now with him really getting behind Roy Moore and that resounding defeat of Moore down in Alabama, that he cared more about blowing up, in the words of the Wall Street Journal editorial page, blowing up the GOP than pushing a conservative agenda. So this really removes him from the spotlight. That's the problem. That doesn't really help the Democrats.
Look, I think what's happening here, look, Steve Bannon got President Trump right where he wanted him. He wanted him to react. We can't forget that Steve Bannon is very close to Trump's base. So this is not good news for the president. In terms of him continuing to pick candidates, Steve Bannon is not very good at it. We saw it with the election in Alabama. Look, today is a very interesting day for political news. This political fight between Trump and Steve Bannon is not going to end. It's not going to end well for the president. This is a distraction for him. He should be governing. We got elections in a few months. I mean, time will tell what happens, but this isn't good for the president.
But, Brad, in terms of Trump's base was there, and he had learned when he was even running for the nomination how to communicate with those individuals who felt left out by the establishment. And I should also point out that Bannon came onto the campaign about 2 months after this meeting between Donald Trump Jr. and these Russians, which he labels treasonous in this book. So to that point, Trump's base doesn't go anywhere. Those loyal to his agenda don't go anywhere. And the fact that the Republicans pushed through that tax reform law is a real testament to the way that the party can govern and the irrelevancy of a Bannon.
There's no doubt about it. You know, Steve Bannon thinks that his name was on the ballot in November during the presidential election cycle, and it certainly wasn't. Donald Trump's name is there. Donald Trump's the president. Donald Trump is the one who's delivered on tax reform. Donald Trump's the person who's responsible for a Supreme Court justice being nominated and confirmed. Donald Trump is the guy who sits in the Oval Office and gets stuff done. Steve Bannon was, if anything, we've come to know now, has been a distraction, and nothing more and nothing less. And if he continues on that path to be an obstructor, then he's going to be run over. And he already has gotten his first accident in Alabama, and that's going to continue. He's nothing more than a distraction. He hopes to be more. He can't be more. And I think Donald Trump has put the nail in his coffin.
He is a moth to that light of those TV cameras. Boy, he already gave that extensive interview that was so long for 60 minutes that they had to put the whole thing of it online. Jose, let's talk about the agenda, though, because in terms of this giant spending bill that needs to get done, you have to get in the Senate, you're going to have to get that filibuster-proof 60. They don't have the 60 votes in the Senate. You're going to have to get Democrats on board. What are the major sticking points? And do you think, because, again, the agenda for the Democrats has been resist, can this get done?
Look, I hope the Republicans work with us. One thing that is very important to Democrats here in Washington and across the country is make sure that we have a clean DREAM Act. You know, President Trump, when he first got elected, he said that he cared about the dreamers. Now he's letting them sort of go out on their own. You know, every single day there are dreamers, DACA recipients, young kids who literally play allegiance to our flag. And Donald Trump literally says, you know what, you're on your own. So I hope the DREAM Act is part of this big spending bill. I hope that we continue to reinvest in things that Americans care about so we can create more jobs. But you know what? The president has to sit down at the table and meet us halfway. That's the only way that we're going to get anything done, both the president and Congress.
But the Republicans and Democrats define halfway differently. Brad, we're using two. I think that both sides are using two completely different dictionaries.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, Brad, for the Republicans, they want DACA, the Dreamers, to be part of an overall immigration package, not part of this spending bill. How does this play out? And I would argue that President Trump hasn't left the Dreamers just out in the cold. He just wants Congress to deal with this.
Right. Look, Republicans and Democrats believe that the Dreamers should be dealt with fairly and equitably. But at the same hand, we also believe, both Republicans and Democrats, that the border needs to be secure. So if we both agree that these items need to be taken care of, then the only question is, how are we going to do it? And that's where compromise comes in. Used to be a dirty word here in Washington. I think it's going to be the word that people have to live by in 2018 in order to get anything done. Certainly, Democrats are going to have to understand the president's going to get his wall. The only question is, what is the wall going to look like? There's a virtual wall. There's a physical wall. There's using drones. There's a way to secure our border in keeping with the president's philosophy of securing it. And there's also a way to take care of Dreamers fairly and equitably that keeps in mind how they got here and their necessity to stay if they want to.
I'm glad both of you gentlemen are here because representing both major parties in this country, you should both be ashamed of yourself because you both want increased spending. And you have the Democrats during the tax reform bill being pushed through worried about the deficits. Republicans have always, when the Democrats were in power, always worried about spending and the deficits. But now they're stepping up to get this spending bill done, and they both want increased spending for their own pet projects. When they're ignoring the big looming problems in this country, that's Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid. So shame on both of y'all.
Well, I agree with you. The entitlements must be dealt with, and it's going to be some tough medicine and shared sacrifice. And that's another reason why I think Donald Trump can do it with leadership.
Jose, I'll give you the final word. Republicans always say it, and they don't do anything. Mitch McConnell said himself he's not going to do anything about Social Security and Medicare this year.
Sure. When President Barack Obama was in power, Republicans were obsessed with cutting spending. And now they're going to be, I could promise you, they're going to end up, the deficit is going to be even bigger when Donald Trump is done being president of the United States. So, it's hard to sort of play with these Republicans when they wear a different hat every single day. But look, I agree with your guys that we ought to compromise, and we got to sort of find a common ground to sort of deal with the spending bill. And all the things that we're going to have to deal with in 2018 is the only way that the country is going to be able to move forward.
Brad and Jose, great to see both of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.